Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Nation Under Whiskey. I'm your host, Haida Mueller-Hatton, and I'm joined today, as always, by my friend and fellow whiskey widow, Tamara Johnston-Yellen. Today, we interview two whiskey files whose favorite hobbies include abandoning their families for whiskey, spending their children's college money on whiskey.
Checks out.
Sending their wives food porn when they're on the road, even though they're eating box mac and cheese.
Mm-hmm. One of them is smarter than the other because one of them knows not to do that. One of them knows his wife does not want to hear about the fun he's having.
Then one of them needs to teach the other.
I feel like maybe I'm the smart one. Am I the smart one in this scenario?
Now you are.
Now I'm the smart one.
In this one specific
Before
scenario.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, we appreciate our listener fan base and that you come for the knowledge that we drop and stay for the clit jokes.
Oh my God. Clit jokes. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Our guests today are two fellows that started a collaboration 10 years ago. They are pretty well known in the whiskey circles, but maybe even better known for their dick jokes.
Glad you added jokes onto the end of that part.
Yeah, baby.
They're well known.
You're not
for
well
the
known
dicks.
for the dicks. You guys may think you are.
Wow. Why was that person calling me John Holmes the other week? Is that taking a turn?
Who's John Holmes?
It's just somebody else.
Oh, Tamara.
Who's John Holmes? Who's John Holmes?
Someone has some homework to do tonight. Some really unpleasant
John
homework.
Holmes work.
Yes.
Is
The worst homework
this
ever.
A porn star of some sort?
Yeah.
I only know Ron John.
Ron John.
Wait, yeah, I think you mean
Only
Ron
because
Jeremy.
he's the cousin of a friend.
As opposed to Paul John. That's a whiskey
Yeah.
joke. Our whiskey listeners are loving it right now.
Paul John, like as in the Pope? No, that's John Paul. Out of my element here.
That was good.
So we're really excited to be on your show today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
It's an honor.
It's nice that we were finally able to fit you two in.
That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
that wasn't a clit joke?
Hey, now.
We are known for our dick
Jokes.
jokes. Yeah.
So speaking of which, maybe that's where we should jump in. So you have a love of saying chin chin at the end of every podcast. And are you aware that chin is penis in Japanese? And are you aware that you're essentially saying dick dick? Is that by design? Or is it just because it's all about the dicks with you too?
Wow. You know, Jason, you're the one
the deep end.
who started it with the chin chin. Is it a Japanese reference? Is it like I don't know where chin chin comes from, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that was never my intention. Let me just be crystal clear from the very get-go
It
here.
was just a whimsical coincidence.
Yeah, two chins. Yeah, I never really thought of any Asian component to that. It's just chin chin is... You've got me thinking, though, because clearly it comes from the English. And the English travelled when they were building their empire. And, yeah, I wonder if there's a wrinkle that they're making there, potentially.
Why is it clearly from the English?
Chin chin? Scots don't really say chin chin. It's like tickety boo. I might say it all the time, but...
Yeah, but why is chin chin actually English?
Yeah.
But what is it like?
Chin chin just means bye-bye.
It means bye bye.
All right.
But now
Click,
we're
click.
talking entomology. Entomology or etymology?
Etymology.
Etymology.
Entomology would be in sex.
It is the bugs, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Etymology. So this is very good. If any of our regular listeners happen to tune into this episode, since you've got us on your podcast,
Right, exactly.
they're used to
Sure.
hearing me, not often chastise. Chastise is a very strong word, but oftentimes pointing out to Joshua word use, word etymology. And so to have you, my darling wife here in this moment, I am on tenterhooks because I know
Are
you're
you-
listening to every
Are
word.
you trying to say you're a pedantic asshole?
Oh, without any shadow of a doubt, yes.
Yeah. And are you trying to say I'm worse than that?
By accident, yes.
Accurate.
You took that to its logical end, and I really appreciated that.
Well, I've learned a lot of logic from you.
Oh, wow.
The philosophy of logic.
I'm just making sure that this is recording right now because that sounded like a whopper of a compliment. So
Hey, I will say, all jokes aside, I don't know if your fans know. Of course, our fans know.
This is hashtag real talk.
But I'm a professor at a small liberal arts college.
It's true.
And you were a professor before this whiskey business.
Well, I was.
And you and I have taught together.
We have.
And I learned an awful lot looking
boy.
at you and watching you teach.
Oh boy, this is too much. Too
And
much.
so for me-
Take it back from the brink.
For me, I know I'm peaking a little too early here, but
I'm verklempt.
for me, it's no wonder that you, and I am sure Joshua, I've seen him in action as well, are so charismatic with your clients and your fan base. And how does that make you feel being so adored by the fans? Especially when you get not nearly as much of that at home.
I feel
Is this why you travel?
this is... Wow, there's a lot in that to unpack. I'm glad Joshua and Haida are here for this.
Yes.
So we've called this meeting today, Joshua, to put Jason on the spot. Is this an intervention? Have I walked into an intervention today?
The intervention. Let's begin.
Yes.
You have taught me the art of the backhanded compliment. So there you go.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you added the word compliment to the end of that.
Hey, now.
No.
It's interesting that as a professor, I had colleagues who had followings, and one of the myths around professordom is that being the middle-aged, corduroy-wearing, elbow
tower.
patch, kind of grey-haired smart guy in the room gets you a following with the young ladies. And
Having a Scottish accent probably doesn't
Scottish
hurt.
accent. And I have to tell you that all of my academic following came from young men. There's just no getting away from that. And it is
I always
interesting in answering your question that the whiskey world is predominantly, thankfully it's changing. Josh and I are doing our little bit, is predominantly male-based as well. And so I feel like I've swapped one group of male fans into another.
So is that heterosexual males or non-identifying males? Because when you talk about, a female following of this mythical professor, I've certainly never had that kind of following because I wasn't that, I am not that stereotypical professor.
True.
Small ears though.
We're having earbud issues over here.
They keep falling out.
Carry on.
I think it's a female thing. I just got the issue with
So-
the earbuds too.
So
Small canal.
Chin chin.
So you're implying that it's a kind of a male professor, female student, heterosexual type of attraction
In this mythology, yes.
in this mythology, right? So with your male student following and therefore both of your male whiskey following, where are we in that? Is this an adoration in terms of I want to be you or I want to be with you?
Yeah, I think it's the hanging out. One of the things that Josh and I always talk about.
No, I mean with you.
No, that makes me think of The Simpsons when Marge is talking about John Hughes, right? The movie director, and says to Homer, no, John enjoys the company of men. And Homer says, well, who doesn't? And so, no, for me, the with it's the community, it's the camaraderie, it's the hanging out and talking about whiskey and talking about being in warehouses. No.
You say that there's this male following, but
Wish
remember,
Joshua was in the room and not on my phone right now.
But remember, I used to work with you. I was while I was finishing up my PhD, I was the administrative assistant in the Flossie department where you taught. When I went into your office every now and then, I didn't see many males in there. I saw mostly females. So why has that changed with whiskey? Are you not reaching out to the female fan base in the same way that you did in the classroom
Well, but I think you just made the point there. You were in the department. You came into my office. My office for the company is in our house, and nobody's coming to visit.
So if you had privacy, it would be all about the ladies. But because you're at home.
Thank you, Haida. She knows.
Keep digging, Jason.
Joshua has never been
I bought some new shovels today
for this long.
I'm waiting for the popcorn to finish. That's all. I'm just,
I did buy a couple new shovels today, so keep going. It's true. I did.
So what's the question that I'm not answering?
It's just why, and Joshua, please jump in at any time. Why do you think that your fan base is more male and than female, and even across, diverse backgrounds?
It's a good question, Joshua. Floor is yours.
I just think, generally speaking, for lack of a better term, the whiskey-loving community is still very much is mostly males. There are more women getting into whiskey, and that number is growing. But it really has been this unusual sort of boys' club thing going on, and it just makes sense that the majority of our Single Cast Nation members, likely the majority of our podcast listeners, definitely the majority of people who came to the Jubilee were men. Now, when we started the Jubilee, 2012, 2013, whatever the year was, it was like 99 to 1% male to female. But by the end, it was maybe 70-30, 65-35, somewhere around there.
Yep.
So we're seeing
you
that
are
change.
bringing in the females.
We're trying.
But I don't think it's us. I think that's whiskey. I think it's whiskey in general that, there's more and more women that are coming into it and are finding interesting flavors and thankfully not getting turned off by a large group of people that try to keep this a men's club.
Well, that was going to be my next question is how do you feel, and I'm sorry, Haida, jump in, please, because I'm sure you have thoughts about this as well. We have discussed it as such. But that whole idea, you say men's club, which, certainly has different connotations to it, but some people might say a good old boys club, and it's full of machismo and toxic masculinity. And how do you overcome that in your podcast, in your work, whatever? Are you trying intentionally to overcome that? And how does that work?
So Josh and I just discussed this on a recent episode of One Nation Under Whiskey, but then also in a recent episode of Extra Extra, It's All About Whiskey. And even before that, the recent Extra Extra was about sexism, a reckoning for the whiskey industry around sexism in the industry.
You guys have a lot of podcasts.
We do have a lot of podcasts. Really keeps us away from our families.
I've noticed.
Hey, if we can't be on the road, at least we can be in front of a microphone. Am I right?
And then there was an earlier extra where we talked about women taking on more roles within the whiskey industry and women working their way up the corporate ladder into even more substantial roles within the industry. And so, there has been part of it. Clearly, we hired Jess to not only was she the best person for the job that needed to be done for the expansion of our company, but it was also a chance to put a woman, a female whiskey lover, into an important position, right? And so that is a moment where we made a move to try and support the things that we say. But then, part of the reckoning coming out of the sexism moment is really how do we talk about whiskey? And when you're in a tasting and you've got 40 or 50 men, there are jokes that are easy to make that will get a positive response. But one of the parts of this year's reckoning is, but if you continue to tell those jokes, are you necessarily keeping the door closed to other people who would like to come in and participate in the whiskey? And so Joshua and I, discussed, concluded that it's maybe not okay to keep going for the low-hanging fruit when you're excluding people from that conversation. And if the conversation's whiskey, well, it has to be whiskey first and foremost. It can't be the jokes first and foremost. And so that's been maybe a little pivot that we've tried to make. And the hope would be, and Josh and I have talked about this openly, you know, that and you and Haida hit upon it in your introduction, is, you know, we talk about a whiskey podcast with dick jokes. Sometimes, you know, we talk about dick jokes with a whiskey podcast, right? Really, it's whiskey. It's really whiskey all the time. And occasionally there's a nod or a wink given to, it's always the penis with Joshua, right? It's one of the things from very early episodes.
So I'm clearly showing that I'm a professor here by
interrogating
you
okay,
and trying to get you to say why. That was
Yes.
also something I learned from Jason. Always ask why.
I feel like I'm hung on my own petard today.
Well, hopefully Joshua can just kind of mix this all up so it's not all like heavy dose us and then...
I don't know.
It depends. If you keep this going, I won't have to do any work.
No, I have one more question and then I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed co-host.
Can I just say, this is exactly what I do with Joshua, is I take over the first 20 minutes of every podcast because I'm nervous. And my nervousness is taking control. And then once I've worked out my nervousness, he comes in, he asks his questions, we have a back and forth. So
Okay, that's good. I mean, clearly I have the same nervousness as you, and
You're
that's
one and the
probably
same.
why I do that in the classroom too. Anyway, although I am in charge in the classroom, so
So, Tamara, on a scale of 1 to 10 or negative 10 to negative 1, how much do you care about whiskey?
oh, that's a tough one because on the one
so many
hand,
negative
negative
numbers.
100. Yeah. On the one hand, negative 100. On the other hand, there are several things whiskey related that I'm worried about, like all these bottles in this room. Like, one of these shelves going to fall down? And why are there so many empty boxes in my garage?
It's not a room. It's not a room. It's an office.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry.
An office
sorry.
is in a room?
Yeah.
Jason is very particular
Okay.
about the boys and I not calling it a room, the whiskey room. It has to
my
be the
God.
whiskey office.
Does it have
you leave-
4 walls?
No. If
It doesn't. Okay.
If you call it a room, you could potentially put the word bed in front of it. If you
Well,
call
we're
it an
sitting on a
office-
couch that's
You
a
have a
bed.
living room, a family room, a bathroom.
But you never say an office room, do you? I'm not trying to defend Jason here,
Yeah, good.
because I think that his stance is downright ridiculous, though it does. Let me really quickly remind you
Well,
guys of
Joshua, aren't
something.
you in a hallway?
Yeah, I'm yeah. So my quote unquote
He's in an
office
area.
is an area.
Yeah.
But it's
It's
so
kind of a
funny.
space. It's a living space.
There was this guy.
Yeah.
There was really quickly because words have meaning, right, Jason?
That's exactly
Words
correct.
have meaning.
Is that right? Can you confirm that?
There was an older gentleman that I used to work with, a guy by the name of Alan Berman. Do you remember Alan? Now he was working well into his 80s, and in the 50s he was an actor. He was a Warner Brothers actor, and he made all his money, and he didn't need to be working, but he would work. He would come to work in a 3-piece suit,
Impeccably dressed.
impeccably dressed
Every day.
and he had this transatlantic accent. And almost every day, I'd go out to lunch with him. And if our waiter at any point after delivering our food to us says, "Enjoy your meal," he would pause and he would say, "Sir, we do not eat a meal. Horses eat meal. This is a lunch."
There you go. Now that's cooking with gas.
That's a bit even too much
He
for
was
me.
very
That's how you
particular
do
in
it.
many ways.
He was very particular.
Now, is that because you could put the word bed in front of meal and you could lose your office? Was that his reason?
I'm pretty sure it had something
I
to do
tell
with
you,
that.
just don't put the word toilet anywhere near meal, because then you got a whole situation going on.
That's delightful. So, do we know how much do you care, Tamara? Where are we on the spectrum?
In terms of enjoying a whiskey, yeah, negative 20,000. In terms of what it means for our family, I care a whole hell of a lot.
Yep. Same
But
face.
as a drinker, as a drinker, as a non-drinker, actually, I don't know if your fans know this, that your wife is a teetotaler.
I've probably mentioned it through tears once or twice.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be the family secret that you didn't want let out.
No.
Oh, no. He's...
No.
Yeah.
No, it's out there.
Yeah.
I certainly say it in my tastings. I say it all the time in my tastings.
Yeah, well, it's interesting when people say, wouldn't it be more fun if your wife drank? And it's like, nope, designated driver built in.
Yeah. Fun. Haida, how much do you care or not care?
I
Have you
have
ever-
zero interest in whiskey.
Okay. Have you ever dabbled in it?
It's not negative.
Have you ever put in?
No, that's not
have
true.
you
She has
cured
Irish
Joshua
mist.
at
I
any
like
point?
Irish mist.
She likes Irish mist. That's very true. But remember, you and I went to the Deanston Distillery,
And I felt too guilty to not do anything.
and she joined a tasting.
I did.
She made a mash. She ran a fermentation.
I did not do any of that, but yeah, we were sitting in that beautiful little tasting room, and I felt like such an idiot being the only one not tasting. So I got groupthink, bullied into
Okay.
She has to tell
tasting
Blake.
whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
I've
did
got
not
a
enjoy it.
lifetime full of being that one where when we lived in Aberdeen together, we would all go out to the pub and someone would get wine, someone would get pints, and I'd get a lovely cup of tea.
Cup of char for the lady. So when you were at Deanston and you were part of the groupthink, did you find it was the best whiskey you'd had? And I'm not saying you fell in love
No,
with it.
because I actually like
you
Irish
still
mist.
hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still hated the
But
whiskey.
compared to the other garbage whiskey you've had, did this, because you were at the distillery and it's beautiful and the room was nice?
I lost my earpod. It was a whole lovely experience. Oh, and remember there was chocolate.
Oh, there was chocolate. That's right.
I liked that part.
See, that's how they get you.
That was a good part.
So that actually leads me, Haida, to a question that that their fan base has asked.
Give a name.
Seth Wade.
Oh yeah,
has
good lad.
asked.
Yeah. Good nation member.
So for you in your household, have there been a lot of here, taste this occasions for some random pour?
Say that again for some random
Like, so has Joshua
pour.
pour with
Pour.
a P.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not what I heard.
Yeah, not just a random whore.
No whores in this case.
And they certainly would be deliberate ones. They would not be random if we were offering.
None of my whores are random.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
No, for us it's smelling them. He knows that I won't drink it, but he will oftentimes ask me to smell one, and I usually refuse.
Yep. However, there was one time, and I think about this quite often. You've surely forgotten this.
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
I don't ask her to smell things too much anymore.
Things.
And
Especially not with a wafting of your hand. Smell this.
I don't normally
smelling.
pull a blanket over her head, but when I do, no. But there was a time when I was desperate to get her into the whiskey, and there was one time I had poured High West Double Rye, and you nosed that and you said, that actually smells okay. I don't want to drink it, but it doesn't smell nearly as bad as any of the other stuff you put in front of
That's
me.
high praise.
That's as
This
high
is
praise
not
as it
horrific
gets. Yeah.
to me. Yep, that's about as good as it gets. Well, I remember
do
in
the
our
girls get that?
Our
Sorry, go ahead.
girls are good at nosing them, especially Mimi. Mimi has a very, very good sense of smell and taste, and she likes nosing them and giving Josh her little nose notes.
That is true. Yeah, she's good with the notes.
I've definitely found myself putting fewer whiskies in front of Tamara now that the 10-year-old has shown an interest. Right now, and of course with the kids never leaving the house, my 10-year-old's in my office quite frequently, and I'll say, "Hey Zev,
Not a room.
Zev, what are you getting on this?" It's not a room. What are you getting on this? And Zev will say things like, "Oh, that's not bad," and then I'll say, like I've said to Tamara for 20 years, "Go ahead and taste it," and he'll say, "No, thank you. No, thank you."
Meanwhile, the older one says, I'm never drinking.
There you go.
It's interesting that you say now that the 10-year-old is interested in whiskey, because I distinctly remember when he was about 3, we were putting some dishes away, and you had one of your whiskey glasses to go in the dishwasher, and I believe he smelled it, or maybe he just smelled it wafting or whatever. And he goes, "This smells stinky like Daddy smells stinky." And I also maybe even have a picture of it too. Remember him taking little whiskey sample bottles full of whiskey and pretending to give it to his Lego guys.
Oh, yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was sharing. Sharing is caring.
It is.
So,
That's good parenting
and,
right there.
It is. Delma,
Yeah.
when she was little, she was like in kindergarten, and they were talking about what their parents do for work. And she just told everybody that her father drinks whiskey.
Yeah, my dad stays home and drinks whiskey.
that's exactly what Kai said. He says, "My dad doesn't really have a job. He just stays home and drinks whiskey all day." I think he was in preschool.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Delma was. It was either kindergarten or maybe it was preschool, but
Yeah, I
it was
think
pretty little.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
really
Yeah.
young.
Thankfully,
We
the
had some
teacher
explaining
knew
to
us.
do. Oh, see, ours did not.
We didn't
know.
have we didn't have to explain it, thankfully.
We
And
had
she actually
explaining
said,
to
"I'm
do.
pretty sure your dad does have a job."
Yeah, at pickup that day, she said, "I know who you are and I know what you do, but just so you know, this is how your 5-year-old describes you." And I was like, "Oh,
Just
right, okay.
FYI.
I got to tell him more about the business now." Okay, that's good.
Here's a more recent kind of funny story. So if Kai eats too much sugar, he eats colors or whatever, he gets, a hangover type of situation, right? Where he's throwing up and feels really horrible. So this happened last week, a couple weeks ago, shortly after Halloween. And he had been eating his Halloween candy all week, unbeknownst to us, because these days we're both secluded upstairs and the boys are doing their school and then whatever else they do.
I'm off in my office. I'm off in my office.
I was going to say we were each in our respective rooms, but
Yeah.
fair enough.
Right. Offices or rooms.
And Kai is like just miserable. And I said, "Yeah, buddy, this is what a hangover feels like." And he goes, "I'm never going to drink ever." And I said, "That's okay. You don't have to drink. But Dad wants me to take over the company." Holy crap. And I said, dude, you do not have to take over the company. And there's a lot more to do than just drink whiskey.
It did. And it's funny, though, because it just led to that conversation we just had with Jess a couple of weeks ago and we had on the Carol Lang episode, where so much of the business has nothing to do with the amber liquid. It's all to do with logistics and labels and, oh, gosh.
So Haida, that's a perfect time to ask
gosh.
your question.
Oh, boy.
Okay, let me go back.
I think
to
that
my
works really
little
well.
handy dandy. Yes, it does. If I can find it. God,
Just do the
damn
slide
it.
to the. There you go. You know how to do it. Sorry.
This is a level of preparedness that Joshua and I have never seen.
And yet,
This is a whole new world.
A whole
yet.
new world.
So
we're worried we wouldn't be prepared.
So speaking of preparation,
I wasn't worried about Haida.
and whatnot. So you guys, you started this business obviously very deliberately with lots of planning. So what has surprised you the most about the business or about the podcast?
Well, I think Jason sort of front-loaded the answer to your question. We're dealing more with ensuring bottles arrive to a bottling hall on time, ensuring the corks are the right size, that we can get the right color capsules. That
You weren't anticipating business looking like that?
I mean,
Thank you, Haida. So I didn't have to say it.
very, very cute. Yep, I really appreciate that. It's not that we weren't anticipating having to deal with that. It's that
Like
we
work?
weren't anticipating that it would.
That would be so much of your job.
If you're looking at the scales, that just tipped the scales more than the whiskey. Most of Jason's time is filling out spreadsheets. Most of my time is dealing with our suppliers, making sure that holes in our cartons are cut out the right size, and when we see labels that all of a sudden font colors don't change. Like, it's the daily back and forth with that menial stuff that we just never expected to take up a disproportionate amount of our time.
can I follow up on that just for a moment? And this is going to sound like snark, but it is not. Because I know this happens in every workplace. But you guys are busy all the time. How much of that is because you're such good friends and you like each other's company? And you're just kind of like chilling and joking, and not chilling really, but joking and talking about what's going on in your lives. And
very, very little.
I find that shocking.
Very little. Like what did we just do on Friday afternoon? We'd reached out to an industry contact to say, hey, do you have any time for a dram this afternoon? We want to toast your promotion, right? And this person had written back and said, no, I've already got plans, but let's get it in the calendar for next week. So we did. But Joshua and I at 4:00 on Friday actually were FaceTiming each other about work. And that, one of the very, very, very rare times, turned into him and I just having a dram. And just reflecting on the week that was. We sold 1,200 bottles of 24-year-old Kentucky bourbon in 9 minutes. And we actually had a moment by Friday afternoon to just sit and go, well, that was a thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a thing? And so, it's interesting. I never thought how unsexy, unglamorous the job would be, the business would be. And it's, what's happening over there?
I'm just thinking
You're making faces.
The same thing about kids.
Well, 100%. 100%. Yeah. 100%.
I kept trying to tell you. 100%. And you're like, no, it'll be fine.
But what's interesting is when Joshua and I started the business, we started it as two people who knew whiskey and had connections in the whiskey world. That was the draw. That was the appeal. That was the conversation that's almost 10 years to the day. And before I get out of this answer, I've actually got a question for you, Haida. It was, for us launching an independent bottling business, if you didn't know whiskey, you could not launch an independent bottling business.
Exactly. Yep.
But to then come to the realization, oh shit, we have to get this from cask to bottle. Those bottles have to be labeled and sealed. Those then have to make their way around the world. Those then have to, go through the American 3-tier system, or now with global, they have to adhere to different country rules, and God bless Jess. One of the things we absolutely love about Jess is she's not afraid to read documents. She's not afraid to understand how companies do business. And we've still sat and talked to Jess and said, isn't it amazing how little of our day-to-day is around whiskey? Actual liquid whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I distinctly remember you saying to me maybe a couple months ago, like, I've been working since 8 a.m.
Jeez Louise.
And I was
so
like,
hard.
He starts his day so late.
Well,
Joshua,
it's interesting.
you're on my team, brother.
Well, it's interesting. This is another interesting question in terms of culture, right?
Oh, Lord.
Jason thinks, no, everybody starts work at 9. And I'm like, no.
9? That's like lunchtime.
That's Dolly Parton route. That's not actually a thing.
But here's the thing.
But then he says that maybe in Scotland, but you haven't actually been there.
But see, if you speak to non-Americans think the American schedule is crazy.
Oh, it is.
The fact that you start a job and you get a week of annual leave is an absolute travesty.
Well, I'm a professor. Everybody thinks I get my summers off.
Well, I've lived with you. I've seen it up close. And I'm not saying it one way or the other. And so I think, and Josh and I have talked about this on the podcast. We've talked about it with one another. He clearly works too much and is working really hard to distance there and give himself some mental time off. And there are times when I have to start work at 8 a.m. And I understand that. Okay?
Sacrifices on both sides.
Thank you. Thank you, Haida. I will ride right through the sarcasm, and I appreciate your sympathy.
Do you guys hear that?
Thank you.
What?
In the distance, a tiny violin. Do you hear that?
Barely. I just can barely make it out. Oh.
And it's playing the song of...
Well, and Haida, you said earlier that you are definitely a pragmatist in the family. And
in some regards.
I am pragmatically pessimistic.
Yeah.
And so it counters to Jason's wonderful, wonderful optimism.
Jason's optimistic?
I know.
He's optimistic?
Joshua.
Holy
you can imagine what I'm like then, right?
Jesus.
This
I don't
is a
have
good
to imagine.
moment for me.
I know. I know it tomorrow.
This is a good moment for me.
Yeah. So yes, you do. You do know me. But yes, compared to me, Jason is a wonderful optimist.
There's no doubt about that. Within the household, but next to Joshua, I sometimes lovingly refer to Joshua as the puppy in the business.
Oh, right.
And
you're the puppy in the family.
And so
sometimes.
Wow. Another compliment. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Haida, I said I wanted to, before this answer was over, I wanted to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Given that we are, by the time this episode goes live, we'll be so close to the 10th anniversary of Joshua calling me on Thanksgiving Day 2010.
Oh.
When he said, look, he texted me and he said, look, I've got a crazy idea. Do you have any time to talk on the phone? Just tell me how crazy this idea is. And he called me up. He said, I had a hunch what he was going to say. He said, I'm thinking about starting an independent bottling business and I want you to be 50-50 partner. And we talked for a bit more. I went in the house and I said to Tamara, I think I just had a life-changing conversation with Joshua. And she said, well, if you want to make a go of it, I will support you. And so that's the story that I always tell. And clearly we've got Joshua's portion of this story where he called me and we had this conversation. I don't know anything about your portion of that experience. Do you, obviously 10 years ago, do you recall him having a crazy idea? Did you ever feel like he was having a life-changing conversation with you? Did you say, why Jason? What's your position? What's your perspective on this?
We didn't know each other then.
No, I didn't know tomorrow. But as a cute aside, so I will answer your question, Jason. Mm-hmm. But so the first time I met you, Jason, you came and visited us in Guilford, and you guys had been hanging out. I think I had been out. Somehow it was later in the evening. Either I had been out and I came home and you guys were there, or you arrived late. I don't recall. And we're chatting. I remember standing in our kitchen in our old house and chatting, and you're talking about your wife, Tamara. It's the first time I'm meeting you. And I didn't know your wife's name. And I thought because of your accent that her name was Tomorrow. And I was like, oh no. I was like, who is this hippy dippy bullshit? Well, I was like, I am not on board with whatever's going on here.
Well, Haida, to be fair, my name means palm tree in Hebrew, so that's pretty hippy dippy itself. Yeah.
So once I realized your name was not actually Tomorrow, I felt a little bit more hopeful about it all. But about the business specifically, I do not remember any of that. But I do remember just wanting. I mean, Josh found something that he's super into, and so I was totally on board with that. Joshua and I are both hardcore hobbyists. When we get into something, we really fucking get into something. I'm more the crafting route. I'm more knitting and macrame and beading and all sorts of stuff and sewing and he's more whiskey. But so he was a hardcore hobbyist, and so it wasn't any surprise to me. And when he found something that he was super into, I mean, opportunity for either of us to have a career that we actually liked and we were super excited about, that sounded great to me. And it's, certainly at that time it was not going to be me, because I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I have had a very good, steady, full-time job, but it's just not something that really fuels my soul. It's definitely not something that I'm passionate about. It's great, and it takes good care of me and our family, and so that's all good stuff. But it's not something I've ever been super excited about. And so, him finding something that he actually could get jazzed up about, that was great.
You helped me early on, though. Like when Jason and I started this company, I had a different full-time job that had me traveling all the time. 2
Actually,
daughters.
Sounds
less
familiar.
than
What's that?
I see a pattern.
probably. You were traveling less probably in your old job than you were in your new job.
Right, yeah. So, but I was still traveling, father of 2 kids, full-time band, potentially traveling for this band, starting a new company. And the pragmatist you are, you said, you have all these things going on. You simply cannot handle it. Something has got to give.
That wasn't right away, though.
That wasn't
you
right
had
away.
been
That
doing
was-
this for a while when
Yeah.
I basically, told you that you had to pick something to give up,
Yep.
which felt terrible. I didn't feel good about that, but I mean, we had very little.
Why were you
kids.
rubbing your palms together as you were saying it?
Suffer. What's gonna give?
It is something, but it's something wonderful about having you both here today, and both Josh and I being with you both today, is in giving the origin story and talking about it at tastings. The number one comment we get is, I don't know if my wife would have been that supportive. And so we both front load the origin story with how important our wives have been to the success of the company. And so we never ever take that for granted.
At all, no.
And we are both very appreciative of that. So thank you here today.
You
Thanks.
are
You're
welcome.
welcome. And don't forget, your kids have,
Oh, yeah.
whether they've known it or not, have supported you in this since
Oh,
they
yeah.
were little, given how much time away.
And I tell
They
you,
had to
those
sacrifice.
kids have pivoted to making sample packs like you wouldn't believe. Their little fingers really get in the fold so
Yeah.
beautifully.
One of those
so beautifully.
silver linings of lockdown is teaching your kids how to make sample packs.
Nice.
great.
This is why child labor is so important.
Okay.
So important. So important. Yeah,
Well,
the
my kids,
Victorians
our
had it
kids
right.
never knew different. Your old job had you traveling, and that's all they've known their entire lives. If anything, COVID has been weird for us because this is the first time in our children's lives that Joshua has been home for more than maybe, I think the longest he ever went without taking a business trip was maybe 8 weeks if you had a slow,
yeah.
maybe. They're not used to him being here. And so that's been, I think, the biggest adjustment for us is, I mean, I worked from home anyway, so that didn't change for me. The kids obviously, were home in the spring, but then, summer was whatever summer was. It was
summer, yeah.
crazy.
Yep.
But I think the biggest adjustment for all of us is you being home all the time.
So are you ready to kill them? Is that what you're trying to say?
Not necessarily ready to kill him, but I don't know. I'm assuming it's probably the same for you tomorrow. When Joshua is not around,
Did
we
you
have
say Tamara or tomorrow?
tomorrow. It's my accent. I
It's
know
your
it sounds like
accent?
tomorrow.
She's always been
You
tomorrow.
scared me for a second. I was like, I said her name right, didn't I? We have our lady days which sounds like it's something menstrual, but it's. But when
We just get together and bleed.
we just,
I mean, it's
it gets pretty ugly over here. But when Joshua's not around, those are our lady days. Like Joshua's not here, and I'll let them get Wendy's for dinner or whatever. And there have been many evenings when I literally had a bottle of wine for dinner. But because I'm playing short order cook when he's not around, I'm not going to do it. But so that's been a weird adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you guys and our listeners an idea, maybe a month ago or so, maybe a month and a half ago, I had 10 or 12 people come over, and we were doing a sherry tasting, right? We were
Outside.
Outside, distanced, the whole thing. And we did a sherry tasting, and we had cheese and, all these pairings and everything like that. And I had said, "Hi, do you want to come out?" And Josh is like, "No, seriously,
Oh my God.
do you? I'm having
not in
lady
the house
night."
is amazing. Even if you're just outside in the yard on the patio with people, just us having a night that just felt like the good old days. It felt like a normal night with us just like,
Wow.
And it's nothing against Joshua. It's just that it's that's a very real part of
you and your
our
girls, yeah.
reality. I mean, that's part of our reality
girls.
is our lady time. Yeah. Just hanging out, watching Bachelorette, schnoogling in bed, doing whatever. It's a different dynamic. And yeah,
Yep.
Do you have any of that tomorrow as the mother of 2 boys? It's interesting.
Yeah,
listening
what's
to
your
this
mommy boy time
dynamic
like?
with the Hattons?
No, is the short answer. However, it has always been really difficult for me to have you travel. And I think that's probably the part I dislike the most. And I don't really dislike your job. I'm not saying that. So maybe I should say it's the thing I like the least. Because ever since Zev was 6 months old, you've been traveling. And this was before you had started up with Joshua, but I think.
No, it was right in line with it. It was right in line.
When you went for 3 weeks.
Zev
I think
was
right
that
before
little
Joshua.
when you guys started?
Zev was 6 months. No.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was born the May of 2010, and the company started with membership. Membership started the February of 2012.
Correct.
But the company was
Yeah, that's what I mean.
was incorporated, May of 2011 as well, same month Zev was born.
Oh, wow.
Right. So this was before. He was born in 2010.
Oh, shit. I wondered why the math wasn't working out. I was wondering, because in my head I was thinking,
Case in point.
the company's going to be 10, but Zev's already 10. How is that working out?
Because he's nearly 11.
He was born in 2010, yeah. Okay, well, welcome to this realization, dear listeners.
And so, so Zev was really little when Jason first started having an inkling of something whiskey related. And while I was thrilled for him, down the road a little bit when he said that he and Joshua were going to do that, at that point I was not thrilled. I was not.
Well,
yeah.
The part that you're talking about right now was the blogging that I was doing.
Yeah.
And I thought this would pivot perhaps into a whiskey writing career.
Well, and then you did a
That it would
tour or
involve-
something like that with Carl or something.
Yeah, I think what
and
Tamara's
the
referring
tours.
to.
And then you were also
Yeah.
you also did some work for U of I while you were over there. So it took you
Correct.
3 weeks to do all that.
Correct.
And so that was really, really tough. But we've come to a very good place since then, because it was also new then. And then when you and Joshua actually had something really solid, because you were just kind of trying to figure it out at that point. And it just seemed like you were, off. I don't know what it was. It just felt very, it didn't feel good. And, but when you and Josh had the idea and something solid, and you were just done teaching, and I was just starting teaching. I mean, there was a period when we didn't know where I was going to be, and you were trying to teach online. And so it didn't make sense for you to have something that wasn't mobile, and teaching just wasn't what you wanted to do anymore. And you had sacrificed a lot of time for me to get my PhD, and I was more than happy to say, okay, I've got a steady job now. Not a whole lot, but we haven't had a whole lot up to now anyway. Yeah. It's more than we've ever had. And so it was something that was manageable. However, the travel was particularly hard partly because some of the special needs of our eldest, and partly just because I was a manic first year, second year professor.
Third year, fourth year.
Well, and that hasn't stopped. And it was interesting because having you home has been fantastic. But when you used to travel all the time, I could see it when you would get itchy. You would be like, I got to get on the road. I got to get on the road. And I'd be like, go, right? And because he would come back so much calmer. He wouldn't feel like that. I wouldn't see that anxiousness in him that he needed to go and do business. Where I don't see that now because you guys get to do so much business from home right now. It's different business. And I know you're going to have to go back to traveling at some point. But it's been really nice. And there was only one time, I think, right before you took a road trip to Kentucky or Tennessee. I can't remember where you went.
September, just a few months ago. Yeah,
where I could see that anxiousness build up. And so...
But that was a different kind of anxiousness. That was a COVID trip. That was
the first work travel.
It was
that was the only work.
It was a COVID trip mixed with meeting.
Well, yeah,
like
for
a
you,
musical
it was,
and it was. There was a lot wrapped up into that for both of us, I think.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean that's the other thing too is Jason kind of, because I am more of the crazed professor and he's the more keep it together, dude, keep it together, and so I don't always know what his anxieties are until after the fact, and. But anyway, and so it's harder for me to tell those things apart, whether it was business or COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so all that's to say that when he left for that, I was like, holy crap, I don't know how to do this anymore. Right? It had only been like 6 months or something like that, but it felt so foreign.
Had to be a temporary single mom.
Right.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
Because when in the early days, it was incredibly hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It was incredibly hard for me. Everything was always better when Jason was home. We didn't have that like special lady time. And we had our moments, sure, but it wasn't like...
Of course, yeah.
A broad scale, like this is our time kind of thing. But there was one period of maybe about 6 to 8 months where Jason was like home less than he was away. And... he told me one day he comes home and the boys and I are just doing our thing. We're just trying to figure it out. And he comes home and he's like, I don't know where I fit in here. And on the one hand, I felt really horrible, right? Because he should fit in this family because he does. But on the other hand, I was like, holy shit, I did it. Right?
Yeah.
And the boys were on board, and the boys were really on board with, they were at an age where they could understand that, look, we're going to be fine. Dad's going to be home in a week. Let's just have fun and get, you go to school, I'll go to work. We'll have some crappy dinner because Jason's the cook in the family. And it did take him maybe several years to realize he really needed to make some freezer food, like pre-prepared stuff for me.
As the kids got bigger and had more needs, they needed to be prepared.
Damn it, Haida, why do they have to eat every single night?
Didn't we just say this
We were
last
just
night?
talking about this
Every
last night.
goddamn day they need
every
dinner.
day it's like, we need more.
Every fucking day. And it takes me by surprise. For some reason, it takes me by surprise.
You know what I have to say, Hutz?
Every day.
And the Johnson Yellens?
What?
Fuck them.
Or not. We actually love them.
Well,
right.
And then for me, it's like, oh shit, they haven't eaten. Oh shit, it's all gonna go down.
Our kids,
our boys
will
go
feed
right off the
themselves.
cliff.
They don't go hungry. Yeah.
Well, they will feed themselves, but they'll feed themselves on crap, and that really throws the older one off.
Yeah.
And so if they don't have regular meals, if they get like too much sugar, well, when I say they, really it's well, actually, no, it's both of them.
Yeah, but they'll also tell themselves they're not hungry, they're not hungry, and then they're ravenous.
Until it's
and they're setting
and
fire
they
to
have the
house.
hangry.
Right,
yeah,
that's
they're monsters.
Yeah, they get hangry, but they don't see it coming. We do, and there's that anxiousness of like I gotta feed them before it happens.
But just very quickly, then we can move on again, and with an eye on time, I don't know if we want a speed round to get more listener questions in there.
We're doing okay, Jason. We're okay.
Okay. Okay. I remember the exact moment of sitting, returning from a trip and sitting there and looking and saying, like, I don't know where I fit into this. But it was this kind of really interesting kind of existential moment where on one hand, it's like when your kid starts riding a bike and you're like, sweet, they have got it. Just like the line we used a moment ago. Like, okay, she's got this. But on the other hand,
I don't want to have it.
But on the other hand, well, do I still get to count in all this? And I think we've got the balance down now. And
The balance of you just being home all the time. Yes.
but it has been interesting is I haven't felt that itch. I miss traveling, but when I travel, I miss not being home. And so there's that.
You miss not being home?
Yeah.
You mean you miss being home?
Do I? Yes.
Is that because you're
Give me
saying
the right
same
answer.
Jason,
Yes, I don't
words
not
have
mean
Words mean
that.
things, is
Words have
from what I hear.
Yes. Okay. So yes, but then I've also I've got family in Scotland, and I
Yes.
have my immediate family in Virginia, and being home through all of this in Virginia means I'm not seeing my family in Scotland, and so. And
That has been a very cool silver lining of this job is that you get to see, I mean, you see your family more than I see mine.
Well, and to be honest, my Scottish wife is much more understanding than my
I'm
American
sure she
one,
is.
So
you know. I'm sure she is.
really-
Lower standards over there.
Yeah,
Lower
yeah.
standards.
I do miss my Scottish kids, though, I'll be honest. They're good.
I'll
Before
have
this
you know
gets-
you just made my
I
stomach
know,
do
I
a
was gonna
huge
say
somersault.
Before this gets too dark and Tamara has nightmares tonight,
Oh, they'll happen.
I'll be paying for this one off the
Hey.
recording. I've thoroughly enjoyed being home. Like I'm saying, I've missed Scotland, I've missed Seattle, I've missed, getting obviously to see Joshua, my work wife, as much as we normally
Haida.
do.
Oh my God.
But
Oh my God.
the LA, the California. I've missed seeing my mother-in-law in San Diego.
She's missed you.
Right, and my sister-in-law and our nieces and our nephew. Like, I've done a good job of combining business with seeing family. And so it's funny seeing this local family as much as I have without seeing the other family.
Your local family.
I don't know how I feel about that. Like all the stuff around it, but saying this versus that family seems a little bit weird.
I'm just making it clear for the listener.
Oh, right,
I know
right.
you understand what I'm talking about when I say this family and that other family.
I know.
I know it's all
But
this
we're
family
primary.
to you.
We're primary.
Oh, you'll always be my primary family tomorrow.
Yes, okay.
Yes, you
At
will
least.
always be my
At
primary
least.
family.
At least. Oh, and here's a question for the Hattons. So for Jason and I, a lot of what we have gone through with raising kids, which is tough, and me being a professor is not easy. The other day, or this morning, Zevian says to me, "So, Mom, how about I let you work while I'm at Hebrew school, and then the rest of the day we play?" And I'm like, we're like 3 weeks from the end of the semester. That ain't happening. Sorry. And then with his travel and everything. And so sometimes things get crazy and we have to look for those silver linings. And so Jason and I have this kind of phrase that we say to each other, at least, right?
I was thinking banana hammock.
No.
But
At least,
asparagus.
right? And as in, well, at least, he may have broken the window, but at least he fessed up to it, kind of thing. Or, he may have been on the computer longer than he should have been, but at least, he didn't melt down afterwards, so just this little, at least kind of phrase is what we kind of say to each other. Do you guys have anything like that?
Well, one comes to mind, and it's, I would say in a way it's almost the opposite. Like yours is like at least, right?
Optimistic.
Is optimistic, where ours is when our kids are being the people that we don't want them to be at that given time, we turn to each other and we say, "Don't wish this time away. Don't wish this time
Because
away."
when they were babies, and I'm sure you guys experienced this, those people who have older kids and they, and we had infants or toddlers or, and they're doing something and we're clearly at the edge, just teetering on the edge. And those well-meaning people who say, "Oh, don't wish this time away. It goes so fast.
fuck you.
Don't wish this time away." And intellectually, they're right, but that doesn't make it easier when you're in the thick of it and you just want to tell them to fuck off. And so that's what we do when they're being assholes. We just look at each other and say, "Don't wish this time
wish this
away.
time away."
Don't wish it
I
away.
like it.
It goes away
I
in
like
the
it.
blink of an eye."
So precious.
I can't even imagine how many parents listening to this are nodding their heads silently right now.
But it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that our at least is optimistic, given that at least is the lowest bar.
Well, yeah, I mean,
there.
yes, the bar is set very low, but
Yeah.
you take the wins where you can get them, right?
All right. What do you
So,
have for us?
next question.
All right. Next question.
What have been, either in your business or the podcast, what have been the biggest highlights for you?
Haida, they've already covered that. That's us.
Other than your amazing
Aside.
wives
Aside.
and
Okay.
families supporting
Fair,
you,
fair.
making
Sure.
everything happen.
And are we talking about both primary family and secondary family?
And,
I
and
don't go
these,
beyond
these,
secondary,
These aren't
primary.
random horrors; they're specific horrors. Is that so, Jason? I imagine we likely have many things that we can bring up. So why don't you come up with one, and then I will follow up.
I have answers from every stage of our company, every historical portion of our company. So I will simply say, from the most recent history of our company, growing this nation to the point where we could sell 1,200 bottles of 24-year-old bourbon at $295 a bottle in 9 minutes absolutely boggles my mind.
Yeah, that's something.
It's unbelievable, and I know the work that Josh and I have put into this, and the sacrifices that you've both and our primary families have made in this, and
The nightmares are coming.
but I've also seen the responsibility that the nation has taken in this, and so our success is a group success, and that's what I really celebrate the most. And that's what has made this particular week really unbelievably off the chain for me.
Yeah, that's obviously the low-hanging fruit, and that's why I let you go first. So I appreciate that.
I'm just glad I gave you time to dab a little tear from your eye there. So you just take your time, Joshua. You come up with yours.
It seriously is a remarkable accomplishment when we think back to some of the casks that we've purchased, and those bottles would sit in our warehouse for a year and a half, for 2 years, and no one gave a shit. Not that no one gave a shit, but it's just
no one.
Right, we were just small fries, and
Correct.
we didn't have a reputation. We were brand building, as the kids say. So that it's a remarkable achievement. For me, however, I try to think about the company with little signposts along the way, right? Signposts that indicate you're getting closer and closer to success. And one of the signposts for me was last year in hiring Jess Lomas, right? We were ready to go global, and we knew exactly who we wanted, right? We knew that Jess was
absolutely.
right, the person to be in the job, and we were actually in a position to start paying someone a salary, right? That means something. That, like, you could sell all the whiskey you want, but when it's just two people, it's just two people. Now we have a third person who's managing the rest of the world. Now we're looking at a potential fourth person for next year, leading up other things, other projects we've got going on. And so for me, it's things like that where we're hiring other people, paying them for their expertise, their charisma, their patience, their understanding, everything. That, to me, those are major, major milestones. You and I can go on and sell whiskeys all we want, and we'll continue to grow the brand off of our selections, off of whatever it is people enjoy about us. But the true success is when we actually need other people to move this ship. That is a huge achievement in my eyes.
And I would like to take a moment and shout out to Jess to recognize that you two have built such an amazing company based mostly in the U.S., and then you hired a woman to take care of the rest of the world.
Yeah. No, and
Kudos.
I see what you're saying.
But
Yeah.
here you are, Tamara, saying it in a cheeky way, but you're 100% right.
Oh, I know.
It's we needed the right person to be that, and Jess was the right person. Does it help that she's a woman? I think women are in general a bit more capable than men. So
answer.
Wonderful multitaskers.
yes, wonderful. You can defend your PhD while going into labor at the same time.
I wasn't quite that, but it was pretty close.
Really close.
Actually, that leads me to one of your fans asked.
One of your committee members had said, "Is that a head?"
What? So, for anybody listening, I was 8.5 months pregnant when I defended my PhD. I was not in labor, but I did go into labor, like a week later?
Yeah.
Close enough.
Tamara, I've always wanted to ask you, when you were defending your PhD, did you, what kind of sword did you have? And was it chainmail? Was it like a wooden shield? Talk to me about that. Was it a Vorpal sword?
Joshua.
Yeah.
The pen is mightier than the sword.
That's what she calls her D20, Joshua.
Oh, there you go.
But anyway, one of your listeners actually asked a question, I think, that was meant to go to me and Haida, but how do we think our husbands would fare in childbirth?
Oh, whoa, what a wonderful question.
Not great.
I know the answer.
Not great.
I know the answer.
Is it not great? Is that your answer, Jason? Is it not great?
So Haida,
We would not have children.
So Haida, why would it not? Because I don't disagree with you, but I want to hear it from your standpoint. Why could I not squeeze a baby out of my vagina?
Because I've seen it when you have little boo-boos.
I do. I
Yes.
get
When your tummy's ouchy, or when your back is ouchy. And it's not like I think you're a massive pussy. I don't. But
He's not. Haida. Let's
not.
pause right there. Pussy, they're pretty damn amazing. So let's not use it in a pejorative.
That's true. Yes,
Am I
we'll
more of a
not
dick
use that
than
as
a
a
pussy?
pejorative. Yeah, you're definitely a massive dick. No, you're not. Yeah, no. I and I don't think it's unique to you. I think, I just think you have no clue. Yeah, the
Jesus Christ.
the level of pain
Yeah.
to endure.
Well, it's kind of like, when they started the business, they had no clue. When they wanted kids, they had no clue.
However, we
Jason's case.
had no clue about the business, but we did it anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just like if you had to endure childbirth, you would power through. It would happen.
It would be much harder on Haida and I, though, right?
It wasn't great for me. I definitely went for the epidural pretty quickly.
Yeah, which you, Tamara, you went through it like Wonder Woman. You're just popping them out drug free.
Not
yeah,
me.
just pop. It was easy as pie.
Was it like this?
I did go drug free. That is correct. But it was
did
not easy. I didn't just pop them out.
So, what would your answer be, Tamara?
That's
Yeah.
a long
It would not be pretty. Especially given when I was in labor with our first. He told me how much his thumb hurt or something like
my
that
God.
during labor.
Yeah. But also my heels.
Oh yeah, he when we left to go to the hospital to birth Kai, I told him to change his shoes because he was wearing these wool felted shoes.
German
wool felted shoes. I said, "You don't want to wear those in there." He's like, "No,
Some nice
no."
Fußgesundheits. What were they?
They were just they looked like little booties, but they were
They were
felted
cute.
wool,
Nice.
right?
Real
And
cute.
so not easily cleaned. And I was like, "You need to change your shoes." He's like, "No, you need to change your shoes." No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
A
Can I tell
tsunami
you-
of red and brown things?
Eh.
You wouldn't believe.
Not so much brown, thank you.
No, trust me, I looked at it and I was filled
You
with
should talk
dread
to my
that moment.
brother, whose second child was born in the back seat of his car, and ask him about what it's like to get that out of the upholstery.
That's going to find
He's been
every
cleaning
crease.
baby out of his upholstery for the past 15 years.
19.
What's great is the kid is now old enough to clean that back seat. That's how long he's been working on it.
You caused this, you clean it up. But yeah, no, it was, I mean, like I said earlier, Jason had a very optimistic, rose-colored glasses idea of kids in general. And I knew it was going to be tough to have kids, and I knew the birth was going to be tough, but at the same time, like I never would want him to go through that because I know it would just break him. But
It would.
but at the same time, if he wasn't next to me, I don't know what I would have done. Like, because yeah, I mean, that's a whole level of pain that is, I don't even know what to call it.
Well, if my heels were anything to go by, you were in a lot of pain.
Yep.
A lot of pain.
And guess who forgot the tennis balls the first time around?
Yeah, I didn't think they
Wait,
were going to fit.
wait. Why are
anyway.
you incorporating tennis balls into your baby making?
Because
Baby
no,
delivery?
not baby making.
Yeah, sorry.
Delivery.
Asparagus.
because I had back labor for both kids.
So you got to
And I needed the tennis balls pushed into my back
to
on
massage.
pressure.
To hit those pressure
Massage.
points.
Okay.
And I kind of had a feeling that I was going to have back labor because that's just how my body works.
Gotcha.
And we forgot them, and we didn't have them. So we were sure to remember to bring them for Zev's birth, and they were really useful. And I just had to give him a signal. And he knew exactly what to do, and like he would be pushing with
Tennis
all his might, be
balls!
like harder into my back because the back labor with Zev was pretty intense.
I was just disappointed I never got to work on my forehand.
We could tell all sorts of stories about the nights that and days that our kids were born, but let's not go there.
Primary kids.
So that was a fun listener question, though. I kind of like that tables turned aspect of the question. Who asked that one? I don't remember the name.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Hang on, let me look.
This is important. We need to call out our
No,
listeners.
I know.
name.
I'm a rookie here at this. We don't do this on our podcast.
Tomorrow, you're going to have this tomorrow? Tomorrow, I'll have this tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh, it was Annabelle Raposo.
All right.
Ah.
Yep. Good guy. Massachusetts guy. Teacher. He's a teacher. You'll like him.
He
There you go.
understands.
Yeah. Educator.
Yeah,
He's an
so-
educator. I should say that. That's a better term, I think.
So yeah,
What else you got from the listeners?
Ari Cohen
Oh, yeah.
asks,
Okay, yeah.
do you think your husbands drink too much?
Oh, that's a great question to ask someone who doesn't like whiskey and someone who doesn't drink alcohol at all.
Just because I don't like whiskey doesn't mean I'm not a drinker.
But I am not.
Yes, you might not be. I certainly am.
Occasionally I'll ask for a drink and Jason says, because you asked, I know not to give you one.
Oh, no. The fact that you're asking
That's
is a
true.
bad sign.
Yes, it is.
And then he doesn't give it to me.
Very bad sign.
It's very different in our house where Josh jumps at the chance to make me a drink, to be the house barkeep, which I appreciate. No, I personally do not think that my husband drinks too much at all. Nope, not worried about it.
I'm watching tomorrow very closely on this one because I'm very curious.
Oh, I mean, certainly you've overindulged at times like anybody else.
She's the
A certain
best
bat
one.
mitzvah comes to mind.
Oh my gosh, that's the other reason why Kai will never drink.
Oh, gosh.
He's still traumatized.
I wish he'd grown up with my uncles and the
Well,
things
see,
that I've seen.
and that's actually the point I was going to make was that when Jason and I first got together, you know, we would have these
Link.
conversations of, I don't know if this is pre second wife or post, I don't know. Second mean that I was first, I don't know. And we would have these conversations about, you know, American drinkers versus Scottish drinkers. And
He is such a racist. He's such a racist.
And I think that that was a hard transition I mean, I never really thought Jason had was drinking too much, but there was there's always this perception of Scots being major drinkers. And then of course I lived with with Jason in Aberdeen with a Swede and a Finn, and they, had nothing on the Scots, or the Scots had nothing on them.
Scots had nothing on them.
Scots had nothing on them.
Scandinavians took it to professional
Yeah,
levels.
and we went to Midsummer Fest in Finland with Pete, and wow. So, but I think it was a little bit strange for my family and worrisome, because parents worry about everything.
Which makes no sense, because you would make your dad martinis and your dad would have a glass of wine with lunch.
I know.
I never ever have a drink with lunch, ever.
I know. It's all very strange. And so that's again, the perception, right, of the Scottish drinker. However, there have been times when you were like, oh, I got to go to Scotland. I'm going to see my brother. I got to work up.
Well, that's different. When you add Murray to the mix, that's something else entirely.
I know. And I'd be like, well, just make sure you drink water. He's like, no, we don't drink water over there.
We don't drink water.
They
literally don't have water.
I get chastised, or as Jason would say, chastised. If I order a drink and then I do a water in between, it's like,
so embarrassing.
We don't do water. We don't do water.
Well, it's surprising that he's so embarrassed, given that how many cups of tea I've ordered in a pub.
Yeah.
I think he would have been over it by now.
But when it's your business partner in the whiskey industry, and he's like,
Oh.
I'll just have a glass of water.
Okay, toxic masculinity
Thank
alert.
you, Tamara. Thank you.
We work on things in our house.
Wow.
2 boys, Scottish husband.
It's all a work in progress.
Work in progress. You know my pain.
Anyway.
So, okay. So let me see. Let me move to the other list.
The other list. I do actually. The listeners are so wonderful, and I love the fact that they had questions.
So many questions. Yeah, we posted them both on our Singlecast Nation Facebook page and then our One Nation Under Whiskey page, and we got so many fun questions. It was really nice.
What's one that you remember? What's a fun question?
Oh, you know
that you
what?
were hoping to be asked?
I don't remember specifically the question, but I remember it was asked by Travis Williams.
Okay, here we go. Who throughout history would you most like to share a dram with? What bottle would it be, and what would you discuss? That's from Travis Williams. There
you go. Do you know what's interesting about that question is I've never once thought about it. It's there's that old, the old chestnut, who would you want to invite, what 5 people from history would you want to invite to your dinner party? But I've never once thought, who would I want to sit down and dram with? And it would be it'd be hard to come up with one. I will say one, and I hope you don't take this answer to be too maudlin, but now that he's gone, I would love one more dram with my dad. That would be, if it really was sitting down, pouring a dram and having a chat, that would be the one.
I knew you would say that.
I would definitely
that was
back
your
into that.
pick.
Wow.
It'd be my pick too, even though I don't
Joshua,
drink.
Marilyn Monroe, what's your answer?
I don't have anyone in my family that I would say, poof, I'd love to have a drink with them. Not because I don't feel connected to family members, but it's just that wasn't
your
necessarily
primary family,
my
or
primary
your
family. The random horrors, the specific horrors. No, it's my family is not other than my dad, who is still alive. There's no one in my family who has just been fun to be around with a drink, right? So, right, like that doesn't come into the overall equation of being
right.
with that
You
person.
hang out and have a drink.
Yeah,
and,
not necessarily that you did either, Jason, but you did have your moments, right? And where he would say, "You're drinking better stuff than I ever did," and you'd give him bottles and things like that. Interestingly enough, when that question was being asked, the person that came to mind first and foremost was Kurt Vonnegut. He remains to this day my favorite author, and I loved the way his mind worked, and I would just love to have I would just love to have a dram with him and just get his understanding of how he viewed the world. Like, what did the world look like through his eyes over a dram or two? And I think Kurt Vonnegut would be it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily for the two wives a whiskey question, but Haida, who would you like to have a drink with from history? And Tamara, who would you like to have a cup of tea with?
I probably would follow your cue. My mom, probably. Yeah, my mom died when I was little. I would probably want to. Yep, if there were anybody I could have a chance to hang out with and chat with, that would be it for me.
Do you know what your mom drank?
No, do I? No, I know that she liked black licorice. And
She had good taste.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Okay.
And Tamara?
Oh, you know the answer to that. It's my dad.
Cup of
Hands
tea?
down. Hands down. And I would enjoy having you there drinking with my dad and having a chat with the three of us. And, we joke about how in the beginning my family is a little bit like, whoa, who is this guy? But at this point, my mom, I think, talks to you more than she talks to me. And
That's true.
You go visit her every time you go to LA.
That's
And I think if my dad had lived longer, he would have been the same way. I mean, not that he didn't like you when by the time he died. I'm just saying, I think that relationship would have grown. And for me, even with the kids, it's seeing you with other people that gives me such satisfaction, rather than being part of it, because I don't necessarily like socializing in the same way that you do. And I know you need your downtime and all that kind of stuff, but I'm certainly more introverted. And I get a lot of pleasure watching you and the boys laugh together, almost more than I think when I'm a part of it on some level. And I think watching you with my dad or you with my mom just gives me such joy. And just to tell him what you've, gone from philosophy professor who supported me through my PhD, because he died before I had just started my PhD, and then started your own business. I think he would have been hugely impressed and proud, and I would have liked to see that.
Do you think he would? You think he would still, if Jason needed it, would massage his shit in the toilet to ensure he can get a good flush?
Oh my God. Absolutely. My dad is nothing if not a pragmatist.
If he did it then, he would doubly do it now.
Seriously.
He wouldn't even roll up his sleeve this time.
Oh my gosh.
There'd probably be more ribbing. As in to
on the poop.
For our pleasure.
Jason's pleasure.
My diet has changed a lot.
All right. So here's another one from Annabelle.
Annabelle, good on him.
If you had to pick a musician your husband could emulate, who would it be? Ida.
That my husband could
Lord.
emulate.
A musician?
So not be, but emulate.
Boy, oh boy.
So Josh is a musician, and what people might not know about him as a musician is that his heart is in disco.
Yep.
There's nothing better than a disco beat. And which I 100% appreciate. Just that funky beat of a disco bass beat. So I don't know that I can think of a musician for him to emulate. I mean, you can hear it in his music, and I don't know how much you guys talk about your
music?
your music and you as a
No,
musician
it's not even
on
brought
here.
up.
It's not part of this dynamic at all. But Joshua is a serious musician. Yeah. So I don't know how to answer that. I just know that you love a disco beat.
But it's not what I love. It's who you would like me to.
Who would I like you to emulate? So for me, this is a ribbed for my pleasure kind of question.
Yes, it is a ribbed. Yeah, it's a franche tickler.
Franche.
An AF. It's a tickler AF. Tickler is a Frenchman.
Who would I want you could see you emulate? I don't know.
Listeners love that one.
I do not know. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I don't know how. Thinking of Jason as a musician just doesn't even cross my mind. I mean that in the most lovingly way possible.
Well, okay,
I mean,
let me see if I can help you tomorrow.
Okay.
Even though Bob Dylan,
work wife can answer this one.
Right, but right, even if Bob Dylan is a musician, so many people think of him more as a poet and as a thinker, right? And so, you don't necessarily have to go down the path of, oh man, I wish he were like Dave Brubeck because I love his drumming. It could be, a lyricist or something like that.
Well, maybe something that people don't know is that Jason he did study philosophy at University of Aberdeen. He was also a double major in Scottish literature, and he took a lot of poetry classes. And he wrote me quite a bit of poetry back in the day.
I
something
hope
I wish
some
he
embarrassing poems.
No,
And you brought some with you?
That's
they
too
were
bad.
all really. I mean,
They were
I'm not a
good?
poet, so I don't know if they were good or not. But to me, they were fantastic.
Nothing
all the
cringy?
things that you. No. Well, I haven't read them in a long time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway, at the time, I was hugely proud and happy that he would send them to me. And over the years, I've said, all I want for my birthday this year is you to write me another poem, and he just refuses to do it.
He won't do it,
so.
huh? Yeah. Mhm.
Well,
That sounds about right.
I will say this: I didn't show my creative writing teacher all of the poems that I sent you, but the ones that I did share with my creative writing teacher, he said were all garbage. So
There's
if you're
that.
looking for that dispassionate pair of additional eyes on something,
But it just
there was no talent there, none at all.
But it just goes to show how confident you are that you would even show him. Like, I would never do that. I would never put myself out there like that. And I admire
way.
that's a trait that you have. That's a trait that our son has. And we joke that there's a joke going on in our house where we, say, hey boys, you might not know this, but your dad's kind of a big deal.
It is
right?
a joke. It is a joke that you say. We do chuckle.
And
There's a lot of Will
but as I've
Ferrell
always
humor
said, Jason,
around it.
since I've met him, behind every joke, there's a little bit of truth. And and we also joke that our 13-year-old is since he was 5 was, a middle-aged white guy, has the confidence of a middle-aged white guy. So it's certainly a Johnston trait, and Neely didn't lack for confidence either.
did not,
Murray
no.
certainly does not lack for
He does
confidence
not.
either.
Nope.
And it baffles me, but it is also rubbed off on me a little bit that, you put yourself out there like you have with this company and even with your poetry when you were young and bright eyed. And I just thought you were just so groovy and swoony and just everything you wrote was awesome. I didn't.
But to put some leaves on those branches for a moment, though, think about Josh and I both started whiskey blogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We both thought, and I've always said it, and I'm not entirely sure of your angle on it, Joshua, but I just wanted a place to put my whiskey notes. And I never once wrote my blog thinking of an audience. And
Side note.
just to connect it back to childbirth.
I went into labor with Zev. I was hanging out with Kai. I was like, okay, I'm just going to hang out with Kai. And then Kai went to bed, and I was like, okay, we probably need to go to the hospital soon. And Jason's like, okay, let me just finish this blog post. True story. He was dedicated. So he says, I just wanted a place to put my whiskey notes. No, he knew he had a following.
By that point, there were people reading, there were hits, there were comments. But then we started a whiskey company thinking, will people search this out? Will people come looking for this? Then we started a podcast, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And we sit and we talk. Would anybody listen to this?
But Jason,
right?
Your approach to it is quite different. You needed a place to put your notes. Ever since I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be on the stage with adoring fans. And so when I started this blog, it was with the hopes that people would find what I was writing and I may inspire something, right? I like, and this is,
Is that true? Are you being truthful
I'm
right
being
now?
100% truthful.
my word.
I really enjoy a spotlight being on me.
He's a ham through and
I'm a
through.
ham.
That much I know. Yes.
Yeah,
that much I know. But
no,
you started your blog with that in mind?
Yeah, mostly because, and I've told you this before, Jason, even to this day, right? I started my blog in 2008-ish, somewhere around there. And so that's a good 12 years ago. To this day, I do not have a local whiskey club or whiskey group.
Yes.
And the blog,
That much I knew,
the blog
yes.
was a way for me to connect with other people in an electronic format to bring them into the conversation. So my hope was that I would start this blog and it would bring people in, and then I would have people to talk to about whiskey. I wasn't looking.
And you had Jason had his local fan base already at that point, and so it probably was a different motivation for him.
Yeah, but and that much I knew about you, Joshua. But those are two very strikingly different claims. Is number one, I started writing online to find a community, and I started writing online to get a spotlight and be discovered.
Well,
And-
to be
and-
seen
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to draw people,
Exactly.
to draw like-minded
to be
people.
seen, to draw people. Yeah, I mean, it was.
that makes much more sense.
It was an extraction of the rock star-ism.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Really, I had so much respect, and to this day still have so much respect for people like Sam Simmons, right, with Dr. Whiskey and
absolutely.
Serge Valentin and Ruben and Kevin Erskine and so many other whiskey writers. And I wanted to be within that community. How do I get within that community? And I liked that as a goal. But if I can get people that I could just talk with whiskey about along the way, man, I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, the community aspect of that makes perfect sense given what we launched with the Nation.
Yeah.
And it was with an idea of building a community there.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and now the podcast has its community as well. It's been community building, but not necessarily the goal from day one for me.
So we're going to have to go attend to our children here in a few minutes. And I have one final question, but maybe you guys have a final question for us before I ask my final question.
Okay. No, maybe Jason has something. I'm curious to hear your question.
You just want us to focus on
No.
you.
I wanted to focus on the wives even more than we have. But here we are.
Smooth talker. It's part of his charm.
I'm going to ask a question that I don't want to ask you, which is how I know it's the right question to ask.
Oh boy. You don't want to ask, you don't want the answer.
Both. We're approaching 2021 will be the 10th anniversary of Single Cast Nation. And we've talked about the origin portion where you said, I'll support you if this is something you want to go for. At what point, assuming there has been a point, did you think this is off the ground? This is actually going to be a real thing?
Given I'm not a business person, I don't have an answer to that because I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what my marker is, but I don't know that that's a realistic marker for a business. So maybe Haida has a...
Yeah, you have... Yes.
I don't think I have a good answer for that either. I don't know what I think, it being like a real business or something, what that actually means to me. I always thought it would be something. I mean, that it would be a success in its own right is one thing. A success like to provide for our family, I'm not sure about that. I don't know. But that it would actually be something that you guys would do something that would leave a mark that would be noteworthy. I don't think I ever had any doubt of that.
Yeah, you kind of piqued my interest on that one earlier, Haida, where you talked about being extreme hobbyists.
Yes,
and
we
it
are.
is interesting how many times over the almost 10 years Joshua and I have been seen to be whiskey hobbyists with this company. And we've gone to great pains with people to say, no, this is our profession.
Oh, yeah, no, this is no hobby
And-
for Joshua. No. Or for you, I know that, yeah.
Right. And so saying that to people where, this has been my full-time job for maybe 5 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The business plan being that, 3 years in, Jason could start moving away from philosophy. It's interesting that it still has that echo of, well, you're a couple of guys with a club buying casks.
Yeah, that's not.
And yeah.
Well, what did my sister say only just a year ago in her lovely tact? She said you were talking about your global expansion, I think, to her one time that you were out in San Diego for business and you stopped and saw my family. And she said something like, who would have thought? And we were all thinking, what is this guy doing? But you've really done it.
Oh, my gosh.
Nice, Natanya, nice. But there was a time when you were working at, either philosophy or another job at the same time. And it was too much.
Yeah.
It was too much for you to do both. And so we've certainly made sacrifices as a family, or actually, I wouldn't say sacrifices. I
Allowances?
Yeah, I would say that we haven't moved forward in terms of our standard of living or anything like, that you see for us. I don't necessarily see that for us, but, because you spent so much time and sweat and tears in philosophy, and teaching is not an easy gig. Being a professor is not an easy gig. And it was great that we had an avenue for you out of that, and you saw it as a path away from teaching and a way to support your family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I'm not sure I still see that.
Yeah. Yep.
Because, you guys worked so hard and everything you did went back into the company, right? And so our lives haven't really changed. We still are a very, I don't know what the word is, humble, frugal family, right? And we struggled for many years, especially right after my PhD and before I found a permanent position. And the thought of this being your full-time gig was both scary and exciting. It's still scary and exciting. So that's why I don't really know if there's a point at which, it's been a rough year for my job, given that I've lost part of my salary because of COVID and retirement contributions and that kind of thing. And so it'll feel really good when we find other ways to make up for those things.
Correct.
But we're fine.
Correct.
Right. We have more than enough.
Very happily middle class.
Yes.
Is a position we never thought we would get to.
No, we did not, especially right after my PhD. And I know you really want me to be able to get out of academia if I want. But I'm happy. I'm happy to do this for you.
Thank you. It's on record.
Show me the money.
It's on wax. Yep. It's her Cuba Gooding Jr. moment. Okay, so I know you've got one more question to get us out of here on this. I just very quickly want to say, obviously, thank you for having us. It has been a pleasure being here today.
Thank you for
It's
joining
an
us.
honor to
Probably
be on
been
your
the most
podcast.
bizarre of our episodes, wouldn't you say, Haida?
I would, yes.
I don't know what... Oh, okay. That's not the one to get out of here, though.
Okay, then I'll let you ask it.
So,
have to do the whiskey.
After. No, wait.
we
He's
have
got
to
to
do
tell
whiskey.
them what. Apparently, they do this whiskey thing, Haida, and
what?
they have to tell people.
What?
They have to tell people what they drink because for some reason, people out there want to know what they're
okay.
consuming.
So
I don't know.
I'll tell you what
So I'm just
whiskey
gonna
I'm
sit here and-
drinking. I'm sure everybody wants to know what whiskey I'm drinking. It is
Yes.
a Nick Weiss Riesling.
Weiss.
Nick Weiss.
It's German Heights. You should know this.
It's a Riesling, an estate bottled Riesling. That's the whiskey that I'm drinking. It's not a
Very
whiskey.
nice.
Yep. How about you, Tamara? What whiskey do you have?
I
today?
have in the classic Tamara fashion have finished a lovely cup of char. Just like our days in Aberdeen pubs.
Yeah.
Gents.
A little non-dairy milk and one sugar for you, and you're
Yeah.
happy.
Jason, what are you? So, do you want me to? I'll read my. Okay. So I started off drinking the. Where is it? Here it is. So this was the 10th anniversary whiskey show. It was a special bottling for Whiskey Show London, and the 10th anniversary, and it was a Sherry Lechig, 12-year-old, right, with that 3D labels. Isn't that cool?
That's a lenticular.
And that's what I started with, and then I ended with the very first Stones of Stenness bottling, single cask nation, 13-year-old whiskey from Orkney, from a distillery on the Orkney Islands. I can't say the name.
Yikes. Was that intentional?
Yeah, we're not allowed to say the name
I
on
hear
it,
you
but
can
it's
park
easy
on
to
the
fall into
Highlands
patterns.
once you get there. Anyway,
Is that right?
yeah, that's right.
Is there a park there?
There's a park on the Highlands.
Just a parking
Oh,
lot.
apparently.
Yeah, and it's from.
I may not like whiskey,
park.
but I pay attention.
To parking lots?
Yeah. It's a very high land
So the
park.
13-year-old
That's the truth.
Stones of Stenness.
With our buddies on the label.
Yeah, the Hello from the Magic Tavern bottling.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well,
Actually, this is, I think it came up in my Facebook memories yesterday that's when we went to the live taping.
oh, nice.
It was yesterday.
Oh.
What, 2 years ago?
That was a wonderful live
that
taping
was so
of
fun.
from the Magic Tavern. So good. I jumped in the Wayback Machine. I actually picked a cask that you and I selected before we had a company. So this is the 6-year-old Glenglassa that my group of whiskey lovers and your any local whiskey lovers that you could find under rocks.
Exactly. Yeah.
We came together and bought 20 shares in an octave, and by the time we bottled it, none of us had enough whiskey for ourselves. But peated Glenglassa in a very lively bourbon octave, absolutely fantastic. And then I followed that with a selection from our very first single cask nation release. I was pouring our Kilchoman 4-year-old.
Oh wow! See, I don't have an open bottle of that. I'd have to open my bottle, and I'm not prepared.
So
to
that's
do that.
why I didn't pour the Aaron 12 or the Benriach 17. I don't have open bottles of either of those.
There you go.
But I do have now about a half of the Kilchoman 4 remaining. And I love drinking that whenever I can.
I'll see you in
But
September when Mimi has her bat mitzvah. Anyway, continue.
20.
There we
21.
go. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Oh,
Hey now.
hey now.
So given that we're being turfed out the door by Haida and Tamara here, there's one more question, and then we will be out of here. Haida,
Yes. For me?
what is that question?
The Farina question.
I have what?
Was it? There was the final.
Oh, I thought
question.
you said you.
Nope.
I thought you said you had it. Hang
I
on.
did. Oh, the one from Farina. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes. In your current plans, Farina asks, in your current plans for the future of Single Cask Nation, what specifically are you most excited about?
Oh, Jason, I was so nervous you were going to say, Joshua, you go first. What am I most excited about? We have so many irons in the fire between expanding into further markets with Single Cask Nation. Like we just got into Israel. That's huge for me.
very cool.
Right? It's very cool. It's very exciting. But we also have some new brands that we're working on that we can't really talk about. I mean, we can hint around at them. We could be a bit squirrely about them, but we can't really talk about them.
We can't. We can't.
But it's, so here's the thing, right? And our listeners will know this, and you guys may or may not know this, but if you look at some of the other independent bottling companies like Douglas Lang, like Cadden Heads, and some of the others, of course, they're doing a lot of single cask bottlings, and they're getting notoriety through that, and they're making money through that. However, a lot of these independent bottlers are coming out with standard lines that would have a bit more continuity. And Jason and I are looking at some standard lines that will have continuity to them. And I'm kind of excited about that.
Me
and
too.
There you go.
There's one thing Haida likes. It's a whiskey with continuity.
Oh, I'm all about it, Jason. You know me and my whiskey continuity.
But it's for me it's the expansion of our brands, right? The company is J&J Spirits. Ow.
Oh, kitten.
Oh, kitten
Sorry,
just
there's a
climbed up my
kitten
leg.
situation.
Right. So what does J&J Spirits do? We've been doing single cast nation. Oh, Jesus Christ. Fucking hell. Everything's falling apart. Everything's
seriously,
falling to
it's
shit.
surprising that the cats on both ends have not done this sooner. We have one that's just patiently waiting outside, not so patiently waiting outside the door, waiting for me to go back to my grading.
She's sitting on the top landing above the top step, a black cat in the
so
darkness.
patiently.
She's just waiting for me to trip over her and fall to my death. Like, she watches me closely all the time.
But if my excitement earlier was that we got to a place where we were able to hire someone, and now we're looking at being able to hire a second person, the idea of coming out with a product line that has continuity is just another one of those things that just makes this all feel that much more real. Like, it's still, at the end of every day, I feel like Jason and I are just a couple of guys that are bottling stuff that we like. And oh, by the way, we're making a bit of money along the way, and we're feeding the company, and that's great. But it still just feels like a couple of guys. And someone had said to us in a meeting we were in a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, where they would say, you guys as businessmen, let me ask you this question. And Jason's answer was perfect. And it was, we're not businessmen. We're not business people.
Yes, you are.
You
need to see yourself as that.
But, I mean, we are. I mean, we're running a business, and it's been successful, and it's growing and all that. But it doesn't at any point feel like we're business guys, you know? Like, and it's these little things. It's the hiring of this person, the hiring of that person, the creation of this new product that all... Right, it gets back to what you had said earlier, Haida. It's like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Like, these are those little things that are happening as we're growing up.
Yep.
That gets me really excited.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with all of the above. Of course, an additional bit of excitement as we look into the future is getting back out and seeing people again. Doing Tamara vigorously shakes her head no.
As I'm nodding. Yes,
Clearly
get out
shown.
there.
This prick out my house.
The people need you.
You've clearly shown you don't need to travel as how well you've been doing. So, yeah, that's not going to fly with me anymore.
I really want to get back out and do another live podcast.
Oh my gosh,
those are
yes.
so much fun.
So much fun.
Seeing the listeners and interacting with the listeners is just so much fun, and I've definitely missed that. I do want to emphasize hiring another person is hugely exciting, and of course working on more brands and getting those full exposure is a future wrinkle as well. So there's tons going on. There's more casks to be purchased, more markets to be broken into. But as far as Thanksgiving goes, and that this is a very different year for Thanksgiving, I have been very excited that the four of us have been able to spend some time together doing silly things with microphones in our hands.
I'm going to miss you guys on Thanksgiving.
I know, it's sad.
It was
you're
a
not gonna
good
be
tradition
here.
we had started.
Yeah, I think even Elrond's going to come down. Well, he is coming down. He's confirmed. And it'd just be weird without you guys.
Yeah,
He's bringing
we're
some of
definitely
that
going to miss
Massachusetts
it.
COVID.
Yeah, 2021. 2021.
Yep.
I have a very quick question. I hear your fan base would like you to do like a YouTube type of show.
Yes.
Did Joshua ask this question?
No.
No.
No, I heard this. I don't know where I heard. Maybe it was on the Facebook page. I do troll your page a little bit. Well, not troll, but I do observe your page sometimes. How much do you think your wives would kill you if you added something else like a YouTube channel
On a scale of a
your
little
already-
dead to super dead.
to an already spread thin couple of guys who do way too much for the whiskey world?
Yeah.
I love every moment of it, but how much do you think you should not do that because of your wives?
That's a good question. How much do you think you should not do that?
I mean,
That's probably the moment for us to get out of here, right, Joshua?
Oh, is it that time already?
I mean, from my perspective, I don't have much of an interest doing a YouTube.
You don't?
No. I mean,
Even
Even
it's
with
the
that
spotlight,
hair?
Joshua, it's a spotlight.
Look at him vacillate on his own
well,
answer.
I have a
The
I have
disco,
said,
the
though.
hair.
I have a face for radio. This is the thing.
I feel like you more and more have YouTube hair, though.
I do have YouTube hair. I will say.
Yeah,
I
you'd
will
be
say.
known for the hair.
I will say this. We are going to be incorporating a third monthly podcast.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
But it's only happening once a month, Tamara. You won't even
Does everybody know
notice.
about that?
Apparently, Tamara doesn't. Because look at Jason.
Mother
Holy
fucking villain.
shit. Look at that.
Gotta leave some
You heard it
surprises
here
for
first.
the podcast.
Jason, do you have heating in your doghouse or no?
Yeah, how is it
Remember,
out there? Is
we
it
call it
winterized?
an office.
Oh, the office. We don't call
Your
it a
office
doghouse.
oh, it's an
an
office
office.
doghouse?
No, it's just an office.
There's a reason why it's the darkest room in the house and the coldest.
There's a
It's for
reason.
this type of
There's a
scenario.
reason why my office has a pull-out bed in it.
Oh, Jesus. I totally got Jason in trouble. He's not getting any tonight. Oh,
I wouldn't go that
Probably
far.
like if he gets dinner.
I
geez.
already,
Makes
I already
it.
made it. Okay.
All right, so how do you want to close us out?
Yeah.
I've got
this
some
took a
things I need to
turn.
attend to after this.
On that note, is that how we're ending it? On this note? Oh.
Well, why don't you just say some sort of closing? I don't know what you guys normally say on your closing.
well, we
say
thank
chin
people. We
So we could thank you guys. We'd like to thank Joshua Hatton, Jason Johnston Yellen for joining us today.
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
And for not talking too much about tasting, that's great.
Yeah, thank you for not
I
talking
think
a
our
lot about
listeners-
whiskey. Yeah.
Yeah, I think our listeners probably appreciate that. And Haida, as always, I've enjoyed our time on our podcast.
Oh, and me as well, Tamara. Always.
Yeah, it's just wonderful.
Yes.
All right, and as we always close off, click, click.
Click, click.
2 clits.
2 clits.